Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Northern Bog style forest, pruning all the trees up into a tight conical form. So here I go. Here is a look at the forest. So you can see the trees are all growing quite well. Some have more vigor than others. So there's going to be a lot of pruning today. There's a lot of trees in this forest. You can see the natural growth characteristics of these trees, that they're more vigorous on the top of the tree, and as you go down the tree, the vigor gets less. So I'm going to be using the blue scissors to prune that conical form up. It's a bit of a brutal operation, but it gets the basic shape of the trees established. And then I can go in and do some branch selection, removing shoots that are sticking straight up, removing crossing branches, and doing kind of a structural cleanup. In spring of this year, I added 3 more trees to the forest: the spruce here, a larch here, and a spruce back here. The one back here was to replace a larch that died, and the reason it died is it was ringed at the bottom by rabbits. And it survived for a couple of years, but it slowly lost vigor, and this year it never came out into leaf. It was doomed a couple of years ago. I replaced all the dead trees in the forest with living trees, and the composition isn't quite as nice. I'm going to try and grow this tree up taller, so I won't be pruning, the top of these trees. And I think the whole composition, it wouldn't hurt to grow the trees taller, keeping them a very slim conical form. But overall, I think the forest is looking quite good. I haven't added any moss to the bottom of the forest. That will come later. The first tree I'll be pruning up today is this larch over here. It's very dense and miniature looking. It's looking really good, but it's getting quite wide. I want to prune it to a tighter conical form, keeping room for all the trees in the forest and giving that northern style where the trees grow in a very tight, tall, conical form. All right, here I go. So I'm going to come in. This is always scary doing this. Here I go. And I'm trying to leave a little bit of the new growth on the tree. And the reason I use the blue scissors is it gets that conical shape established. You could do it by hand, but it would take a long time, and I think the results would be the same. And I'll get some browning of the tips because I'm cutting through needles. But these larches put out, 3 to 4 flushes of growth per summer, so it'll quickly fix itself. So I'm trying to go as tight as possible, leaving a little bit of the new growth on. And it looks a bit like a Christmas tree. I may have to do some branch selection in here so it doesn't look like topiary. So you need to get up, study the tree from all angles when you're doing this, because it is a 3-dimensional object. So that's about as tight as I can get it. Like that. Here's a look at the tree from a different angle, so you can see the conical shape of it. And it doesn't look very natural at the moment, but slowly over the years, repeating this technique, you'll get a very natural tree, because there will be some natural branch selection, and there'll be some selection by me also, pruning up some of these branches, giving some space between the branches. So that'll be my next step, is going in and looking at the branch structure and trying to get a bit of separation. It's a nice problem to have when your trees are so dense that you need to thin them out. So next I'm looking at the branch structure. So here I've got a shoot coming from the top of the branch that's crossing over, so I can remove that. Again, trying to get some space between these branches. It's just a matter of going in and looking at each branch and seeing what you can prune on it. If there's back buds, maybe you can prune the shape back further. I can see I could tighten this up a bit. Otherwise, your trees just keep getting a little wider each year, and you don't end up with that tight conical form. So you've got to rely on back buds. There's a vertical shoot I can take out here. And you've got to look at branch direction. You want all your branches coming out radially from the center of the tree. You don't want them coming on weird angles or anything. So in here I can see a branch. Does it come out? It's coming off of another branch, so I can thin it out by taking this one out. I'll take it to a back bud that's on the interior there. Creates a bit of space there. Yeah, it's just a matter of going in and sorting the branch structure out. And the more you thin it, the easier it is to see the branches. At first, it's pretty hard to see what's going on here, but eventually I'll get it. So I can prune this conical shape back further. I've got, this much new growth still sticking out, so I can take it in a little tighter. So I'm going to do that. Shearing it a little tighter. Always trying to push the limits of the tree to get what you want. That was a big cut there. And I went in and I looked at the reference photos of these northern trees, and the larches can be a little less tight than the spruce, but the spruce are very, very tight. They're yeah, very tight conical forms to the spruce, the black spruce. Up north anyway. So that I tightened it up a bit there. So I'll just keep going in, looking at the branch structure, trying to see each branch, and pruning and thinning it out. So I'm just trying to see what's going on here. Okay, I see my branch. Just prune the tip off this one, tip off this one. There's one sticking up here I can prune off. Shorten this one. I can shorten this one. Some interior buds there. There's one sticking up here I can take off. So all this vertical growth on the branches I'm pruning back. It doesn't affect the overall silhouette, but it opens up space between the branches. And I'm keeping those vertical shoots, most of them. I'm just kind of pruning the tips off to keep them compact. So here I've got a double branch going from the one spot low down, so I could take one branch out and that would help thin it out. And I think I'll take this one that's coming out front. So here I go. First kind of hard prune on this tree, removing that branch, and you can see the space it opens up. Here on this branch I've got some upright growth, and then I have a nicer cascading part, so I'm going to take that upright part off. So here I go. Again, that opens up some space in here, so it doesn't look like a Christmas tree, it looks more like a natural tree. There's another upper branch here I'm going to take off. I've got some better cascading ones below, and it again opens up some space. You want each radial branch to have space beside it. You don't want your two radial branches interfering with each other. So I'm opening up kind of space, isolating each branch a bit. So already, I'm seeing, spaces opening up, and it's looking a little more realistic and miniature. So this type of pruning, it takes a long time. So you just have to be aware when you create a forest that, you're not just pruning up one tree, you're pruning up multiple trees, and you have to keep them small, miniature. Otherwise your forest gets way out of control and it starts to not look so good. So that opened up a lot of space here. And you don't have to have perfect spaces. It can look more natural if you have sort of random openings on your tree, just like the trees in nature. So it's getting there. You can see, I've opened up a lot of space on the tree. It's still a little dense down below here, so I'll have to do a bit of sorting. And I think I have a crossing branch here I can remove. That helps open up some space here, and I need some space in here too. It's too crowded. Yeah, I think I can take off this part of the branch. Like that. That helps. Okay, I think this tree is pruned up quite well. Maybe just a little more thinning there. Yeah, it's looking much better. Doesn't look like a dense cone, topiary type tree. And, as it grows in, it'll lose those straight edges on the conical shape. Some branches will grow a little more vigorously, so it'll look more natural once the second flush of growth begins. So there's a look at the tree kind of close up, and you can see how I've opened up space in the branches so they're getting light and air circulation. I'll continue pruning up the rest of the larches in the forest using the same techniques. And then when that's done, we'll come back and I'll show you pruning up a spruce. I've got all the larches roughly pruned up in the forest. So now you can see the individual trees instead of just looking like a big green blob. So the next task is to tackle the spruce trees, the black spruce. And I'll use the same techniques. I'm trying to think which tree I'll show you. Maybe this tree back here. So I'll prune this one up next. So again, I'll come in with the blue scissors and start shearing. You know, keeping a bit of my new growth. If you don't leave new growth on the tree, you're risking killing the branches off. So I'm trying to get it as tight as possible. And that'll create some space between the trees and give me that northern spruce form that I'm looking at. And you know, it's quite possible you can lose branches, but generally, you know, something fills in. And if you do lose branches, well, that's part of the form. You don't want the trees looking, you know, full and dense like a Christmas tree. You want them to look natural. So, you know, naturally in a forest, the weaker branches that get shaded out will die off, and the branches that get good sun will thrive. And yeah, just like in a full-size forest, you get nature doing some pruning for you. So that's kind of got the form pruned up, you know, as tight as I dare. So you can see there's a lot of crossing branches, and I'll have to do the same thing, go in with my scissors and do individual branch selection and pruning now. Anything growing upright gets pruned back. And there's some branches in here that have died off, but there's a bud there. So it may grow now that it gets light. And you can do some selective branch pruning. You know, trying to maintain that spruce form. Flattening branches out. And if you get downward branches growing, it's always nice to prune back to those so you get kind of a cascading branch. So you see this one's crossing over top of the branch below it here, so I'm going to take that right out. Bit of thinning. This branch tip here, it has multiple shoots coming out, so I need to do some selection. You know, pruning away upward growth, keeping my cascading growth. And that'll eventually give you a nice spruce form where the lower branches cascade. As you go up the tree, they become horizontal, and then as you go up in the apex, they become more vertical. Just like trees in nature. So I'm thinning out a lot of these branches, removing a lot of this upward growth. Growth that's pointing inwards to the tree. So you can see these branches are getting much flatter now. They look more miniature, more spruce-like. Here's some branches growing in towards the center of the tree. Get rid of those. Again, up here, I've got branches growing in towards the center. Always picking your best branches, and you know, slowly over the years, that selection process starts to create a really nice miniature looking tree. So here's a branch growing upwards I can remove totally, keeping the more flowing branches. There's one here growing in towards the center of the tree. Vertical growth. Old branch I can prune away. So that tree is looking much better. It's not finished, but it's looking better. So pretty well the same techniques for the spruce as I used on the larch. You know, pruning to the overall conical shape, and then going in and refining all the branches. And thinning them. And on the trees, you can see the tree beside it, it's touching it. So you can, you know, thin it, and then any branches that are pointing directly towards the tree beside it, you can prune away. You'll see that in nature that, you know, they always seem to have room between the trees in nature. I'm going to continue pruning up the trees to a conical shape, branch selection, thinning, choosing my best branches. It may take quite a while. It'll probably take me at least to the end of today. And if I have to go into tomorrow, well, that's okay too. I'm in no hurry. I just want to prune it up nice and accurately. And eventually we'll see what it looks like. And it helps to wiggle the tree so you can see what branches are attached to which tree. And you'll notice the density of branches increases as you go up the tree. And from the reference photos, you see the same thing on these black spruce in nature. They have like they almost look like arrowheads. They have a dense conical crown, and then they're sparser down below. I think this is a new tree back here too. I can't do a lot of pruning on that one. Yeah, it is. I think I wanted to fill in the back here to make it denser. So when the larches are in their yellow colors in fall, you have this backdrop of dark green foliage. This could be a new tree here too, I think it is. So I think I added two back here. So I can only do a little bit of pruning on them. Maybe just some of the tips, but that will come as they start to fill out. Take that branch off and that branch off. This is an older tree here. This tree has always been a bit of a problem. It's not a very conical form, but I keep working at it. and I think, you know, someday it'll have a conical form. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, every tree doesn't have to look the same either. You want some variation in the forest. So this is a new tree. I can't really prune this one much. I can maybe just take a bit of the tips off. Okay, other than the new trees, I've basically got all the trees profile pruned. How's it looking? Here's a look at the forest. So it's definitely looking more miniature with the trees separated. It looks more northern with the tight conical shape to them. So now I've got the long task of going in and doing all my detailed branch work, which will take, as I said, quite a while. There's a lot of branches to be pruned in this forest, and yeah, I think it'll take me at least to the end of this day. I always look forward to seeing this forest in fall when the larches turn a bright yellow color. The backdrop of the green spruce, it always looks kind of magical. So I'll work away pruning up the forest, and we'll come back either at the end of today or early tomorrow morning. I spent the afternoon working away on the trees, so here is a look at the forest. It's hard to know when to stop with the trees. If it was going into a show or something, I would do a more detailed pruning, but I think I've got like most of the trees pruned up quite well. Some of the newer trees need more work and development, but it's looking good, I think. It looks like a miniature forest from up north. I'm very happy with it. So the next step is to let it grow back in again and repeat the process as the trees grow. But it's a very pleasing forest. It reminds me of northern Canada. I'll rotate the forest around so you can see it from all angles. So here's the front. Coming around to the right-hand side. Around to the back. The left-hand side. And back to the front. This forest is a very young forest. It's only, I think, maybe 4 years old now. But it's showing a lot of promise. It'll be exciting watching these trees mature over the years. And there'll be a lot of challenges trying to keep them into that slim conical form. Yes, it'll be a work in progress for many years as the trees slowly mature. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.